The galaxy's top predators didn't expect humans. Captain Elaine Winters stared at the massive viewing screen on the bridge of the USS Horizon. Earth's first deep space vessel had been exploring this uncharted region for 3 weeks now. The ship's faster-than-light engine, humanity's greatest achievement, had carried them farther than any human had gone before. "Captain, we're picking up unusual energy readings," said Lieutenant Ryan Jackson, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Looks like weapons fire." Elaine leaned forward in her chair. On screen, maximum magnification. The image shifted to show 2 vessels. One was sleek and silver, clearly damaged and trailing debris. The other was larger, with a dark red hull that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. Its shape reminded Elaine of a giant insect. "That smaller ship is under attack," she said. "Life signs?" Dr. Alan Miller, the ship's xenobiologist, checked his readings. "The silver ship has about 30 life forms aboard. The aggressor vessel has readings unlike anything I've seen before. Their biology is fascinating. Exoskeletal, maybe?" "Captain," Ryan interrupted, "the smaller vessel is broadcasting a distress signal. Universal mathematical sequence. They're asking for help." Elaine stood up, her decision already made. Humanity had hoped their first contact would be peaceful, but she wouldn't stand by while one group attacked another. "Battle stations. Prepare to intercept." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. Though the Horizon was primarily an exploration vessel, Earth had been cautious enough to arm it well. "We're within communication range," said Communications Officer Lisa Moore. "Should I hail them?" "Open channels to both ships," Elaine ordered. Lisa's fingers danced across her console. "Channel open. This is Captain Elaine Winters of the Earth, vessel USS Horizon. We request that you cease your attack immediately. We are prepared to offer assistance to the damaged vessel." The response came as a series of clicks and hisses that the computer struggled to translate. Finally, it produced a rough approximation in English. "Lesser beings do not command the Dravek. Leave or become food." The bridge fell silent. "Food? They've increased power to weapons," Ryan reported, his voice tight. "They're targeting us now." "Evasive maneuvers," Elaine ordered. "Bring us between them and the damaged vessel." The Horizon moved smoothly, its engines humming as it took up a protective position. "They're firing," Ryan called out. The ship shuddered as energy blasts struck its shields. "Shields holding at 82%, reported Chief Engineer Kevin Moore from Engineering. "But those weapons pack a punch, Captain." "Return fire," Elaine commanded. "Target their weapon systems only." The Horizon's laser arrays fired, striking the Dravek ship with precision. The alien vessel seemed momentarily surprised by the counterattack, its movements becoming erratic. "They're scanning us," Alan said, "trying to figure out what we are." The Dravek ship suddenly launched what looked like boarding pods toward both the Horizon and the damaged vessel. "Intercept those pods," Elaine ordered. "Don't let them reach either ship." Ryan targeted the incoming threats, destroying several, but 2 pods attached themselves to the hull of the damaged silver ship, and one made it through to the Horizon. "Breach on Deck C," the computer announced. "Security teams responding." "Miller, what can you tell me about these Dravek?" Elaine asked, knowing they needed information fast. Alan studied his readings. "Based on these scans, they appear to be arthropod-like, 9 feet tall with natural armor plating. Their biology suggests they're evolved predators. High strength, natural weapons, but..." He paused. "Their energy output is erratic. They seem to have evolved for short bursts of activity rather than sustained effort." "Security to bridge," came a voice over the comm. "We've engaged the intruders. They're big and strong, but we're holding our own. They seem surprised by our resistance." Elaine nodded. "Keep it up." "Jackson, status of the other vessel?" "They're being boarded," Ryan replied. "Their defenses are failing." "Prepare a rescue team," Elaine decided. "We're going to help those people." Within minutes, a team led by Security Chief Frank Harris transported to the damaged vessel. The fighting was intense but brief. The Dravek, expecting easy prey, found themselves outmaneuvered by humans who fought as a coordinated unit. "Captain, Frank's voice came through with heavy breathing. We've secured 23 survivors. The aliens here, they're not fighters. The Dravek were hunting them like animals. Get them aboard, Elaine ordered, medical team standing by. As the rescued aliens were brought aboard, Dr. Alan Miller was fascinated. They were humanoid, but with blue-tinted skin and large, expressive eyes that spoke of centuries of fear. One of them, who introduced himself as Nelvar, spoke through the translator. You fought the Dravek. No one fights the Dravek and lives. We're not from around here, Elaine explained simply. For thousands of years, the Dravek have been the apex predators of the galaxy, Nelvar said. They see all other species as either food or slaves. They have never been defeated. The horizon shuddered again as the Dravek ship renewed its attack. Their main weapons are offline, Ryan reported. They're trying to withdraw. Let them go, Elaine decided. But track their course. The dark ship limped away, still broadcasting threats in its clicking language. Later, in the ship's conference room, Elaine met with her senior officers and Nelvar. The Dravek will return, Nelvar warned, and they will bring others. No species has ever hurt them and been allowed to live. What makes them so dominant, Elaine asked. They evolved as the perfect hunters, Nelvar explained. Strong, fast, with natural weapons and armor. They release fear pheromones that paralyze most species, and they are utterly merciless. Yet we fought them off, Ryan pointed out. Yes, Nelvar said, his large eyes wide with wonder. Your species, you didn't freeze when they attacked, and you fought together, protecting each other. The Dravek don't understand this. They compete even among themselves. Dr. Miller leaned forward. It sounds like you're describing classic predator versus prey psychology. The Dravek evolved as solitary apex predators, while humans evolved as social hunters. We learned to cooperate, to plan, to strategize, and to protect others, Elaine added. We won't stand by while they hunt innocent species. Then you have made an enemy of the most powerful force in the galaxy, Nelvar said solemnly. The communication system chimed. Captain, Lisa's voice came through. We're detecting multiple ships on approach, Dravek design but much larger than the one we encountered. Elaine stood up. It seems we've gotten their attention. She looked at her crew, determination in her eyes. Let's show these predators that they've never faced anything like humans before. As the horizon prepared for battle, a message came through from the lead Dravek vessel. The computer translated, Humans, you are designated Category 1 threat. Extermination protocols enacted. Ryan looked at his captain. What does that mean? Nelvar's voice was hushed. It means they don't want to hunt you anymore. They want to wipe you out completely. No species has ever earned that designation before. Elaine straightened her uniform. Well, there's a first time for everything. Humanity didn't come this far to be anyone's prey. She turned to her crew. Battle stations, and send a message back to Earth. Tell them we've made first contact and we're going to need reinforcements. The galaxy's top predators were about to learn that humans were a species like no other they had ever encountered. 6 months had passed since the USS Horizon's first encounter with the Dravek. In that time, humanity had learned much about their new enemy. The Dravek had launched 3 separate attacks on human outposts, each one more aggressive than the last, but humans were quick learners. General Samantha Powell stood in Earth's Defense Command Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the movements of Dravek ships. Her gray eyes narrowed as she studied their patterns. They always attack the same way, she said to the room full of military leaders. Direct approach, overwhelming force, no subtlety. That's because they've never needed subtlety before, replied Chief Engineer Kevin Martinez. He gestured to a damaged piece of Dravek technology recovered from a recent battle. Their entire evolution has been as apex predators. They've never faced an enemy they couldn't simply overpower. Until now, Samantha said with a slight smile. The door to the command center slid open and Ambassador Darius Johnson walked in. His usual diplomatic calm was replaced with obvious excitement. The Falari have agreed to join us, he announced. That makes 5 species now willing to fight alongside humans against the Dravek. This was good news. The Falari were known for their speed and agility, qualities that would complement human endurance and tactical thinking. And I've got something they're really going to hate, Kevin added, pulling up schematics on the main screen. We've developed a compound that blocks their fear pheromones. The Dravek rely on those to paralyze their prey before attacking. Samantha nodded appreciatively. She'd seen footage of other species freezing in terror when faced with Dravek warriors. Humans, for some reason, were largely immune to this effect. Now they could extend that immunity to their allies. We need to test this in the field, she said. And I know just where. The lunar colony had been on high alert for weeks. Intelligence suggested it would be the Dravek's next target. With its population of 5,000 miners and scientists, the moon base was an appealing target for the predatory aliens. Lieutenant Ryan Jackson, now transferred from the Horizon to Lunar Defense, finished instructing a group of civilians on emergency protocols. Remember, he told them, the Dravek expect you to run or freeze. They don't expect you to fight back or work together. That's our advantage. A young woman raised her hand. But they're stronger than us, faster than us. For short bursts, Ryan corrected. Dr. Miller's research confirms it. Dravek evolved as ambush predators. They tire quickly. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We can outlast them. The alarm klaxons began to wail before he could say more. They're here, he announced calmly. Everyone to your stations. Remember your training. The Dravek attack came with their usual, overwhelming force. 6 warships appeared from hyperspace and immediately began landing troops at multiple points around the lunar base. What they didn't expect was the reception waiting for them. Instead of panicked civilians, they found prepared defenders. Instead of easy prey, they found humans who had studiously analyzed Dravek weaknesses. In Command Center 2, Samantha Powell directed the defense alongside the lunar governor. Activate the sonic emitters, she ordered. Throughout the base, devices began emitting sounds at frequencies that the Dravek found unbearable. Their sensitive antennae, evolved to detect the slightest movement of prey, now became a liability. Group 3, engage, Samantha continued. Ryan Jackson led his team down a corridor where disoriented Dravek warriors were trying to regroup. The humans wore special suits developed by Kevin Martinez that masked their heat signatures and scattered the Dravek's sensory input. Remember, Ryan told his team, sustained engagement. Make them chase you. The humans attacked in pairs, one drawing attention while the other struck from behind. When the Dravek warriors gave chase, the humans retreated, only to circle back. Again and again, they forced the larger aliens to exert themselves in futile pursuits. After 20 minutes, the change was noticeable. The 9-foot-tall predators moved more slowly, their attacks becoming clumsy. The chitinous armor that made them nearly invulnerable in short fights now weighed them down in a prolonged battle. In another section of the base, civilian engineers had modified mining equipment into makeshift weapons. The Dravek, expecting terrified non-combatants, found themselves facing determined defenders who used their knowledge of the base to create choke points and traps. They're retreating in sectors 2 and 4, reported a technician to Samantha. Don't pursue yet, she ordered. Let them tire themselves out more. Ambassador Johnson, who had come to the moon to observe the defense firsthand, watched in amazement. The Falari said the Dravek never retreat. Ever. They've never had a reason to before, Samantha replied. They're used to quick kills against paralyzed prey. This sustained fighting goes against everything in their biology. After 3 hours of combat, the Dravek forces began a full withdrawal. Their coordinated attack had devolved into individual warriors fighting for themselves, their natural competitiveness overriding their already limited sense of cooperation. Ryan's team cornered one of the last Dravek commanders in a storage bay. The massive alien hissed at them, mandibles clicking in what the translators identified as disbelief and rage. You should be food, the Dravek said. You are soft. No claws, no natural weapons. Ryan stepped forward, his weapon lowered but ready. We don't need them. We have something better. Nothing is better than strength. Cooperation is, Ryan replied. While you fight alone, we fight together. While you get tired, we keep going. You evolved to be the perfect killer, but we evolved to work together to solve problems to outlast our enemies. The Dravek launched itself at Ryan with startling speed, but the human was ready. He sidestepped, and his team members fired targeted shots at the joints in the alien's exoskeleton, another weakness they had discovered through study. As the wounded Dravek collapsed, Ryan knelt beside it. And one more thing, those fear pheromones you release, they don't work on us. We feel fear, but we don't let it control us, we use it. The Dravek's compound eyes stared at Ryan with what might have been the first uncertainty of its life. Later, as medical teams treated the wounded and engineering crews repaired damage to the base, Samantha, Kevin, and Darius gathered to assess the victory. We lost 37 people, Samantha said solemnly, but we protected 5,000 and we proved the Dravek can be beaten. And we captured 3 of them alive, Kevin added. The scientific data alone is invaluable. Darius looked at the reports coming in from their alien allies. The Filari are stunned. They've been hunted by the Dravek for centuries, never believing they could be defeated. This is just the beginning, Samantha said, looking at a galactic map where Dravek territory stretched across thousands of star systems. They still outnumber us, outgun us, but now they know we aren't easy prey. A communication officer approached with an urgent message. General, we've intercepted and translated a Dravek transmission to their homeworld. The 3 leaders listened as the message played. Humans possess unexpected resilience. They do not respond to fear stimuli. They coordinate defense actions with unusual efficiency. Most concerning, they appear capable of teaching these methods to lesser prey species. Request immediate dispatching of Imperial fleet to human territories. The prey anomaly must be eliminated before infection spreads. Samantha's expression was grim but determined. They're calling in their big guns. Then we better be ready, Kevin said. I've got some new ideas for weapons specifically designed to target their weaknesses. And I'll accelerate our diplomatic efforts, Darius added. Every species that joins us brings new strengths to the Alliance. As they dispersed to their duties, Samantha remained looking at the star map. The Dravek had ruled the galaxy through fear for thousands of years. Now for the first time, they had encountered a species that wouldn't be hunted. The galaxy's top predators were about to learn what happened when humans were threatened. 1 year had passed since humanity's first encounter with the Dravek. In that time, Earth had transformed from a single-planet civilization, taking its first steps into the stars, to the leader of a growing interstellar alliance. Species that had lived under Dravek dominance for generations now looked to humans with something they had long forgotten: hope. Commander Patricia Riley stood in the hangar bay of the Alliance space station Harmony, watching as representatives from 14 different species trained together. Some were tall and willowy, others short and stocky. Some had scales, others fur, and a few were even crystalline in structure. But they all shared one thing in common. They had been prey to the Dravek. Never thought I'd see the day, said Eric Nelson, the weapons specialist who had been teaching combat techniques to their alien allies. The Zorlans and the Venda actually working together. Before we showed up, they wouldn't even be in the same room. Patricia nodded. The Dravek had deliberately kept their prey species divided, encouraging conflicts between them to prevent any unified resistance. It had worked for thousands of years until humans arrived. How are they progressing, she asked. Better than expected, Eric replied. Each species has natural advantages we can work with. The Venda can see in infrared. The Zorlans have incredible reflexes. The Tulari can communicate telepathically over short distances. We're forming specialized units that leverage everyone's strengths. A tall, blue-skinned alien approached them. Zorlan, a scientist who had been studying humans since their arrival in the sector, had become one of their strongest advocates. Commander Riley, he said in his melodious voice, your species continues to fascinate me. You lack the strength of the Krell, the speed of the Venda, or the natural armor of the Geth. Yet somehow you teach all of us to fight effectively. Patricia smiled. That's because we've been both predator and prey in our evolution, Zorlin. Humans once hunted animals larger and stronger than ourselves, but we were also hunted by other predators. We learned to compensate for our physical limitations and to work together, added Eric. Cooperation is humanity's greatest weapon. Across the hangar, Admiral Scott Taylor was meeting with the captains of the newly formed Alliance fleet. 20 ships of various designs and origins had been retrofitted with human-inspired weapons and tactics. The Dravek always attack in the same formation, he explained, pointing to a holographic display. They rely on overwhelming force and the expectation that their prey will panic. But we know better now. A Krell captain, nearly 7 feet tall, with gray skin like rough stone, spoke up. My people have fought the Dravek for centuries. Always we lose. Why will this time be different? Because this time you're not fighting alone, Scott replied. And this time we're not defending, we're attacking. The announcement sent a ripple of surprise through the gathered captains. Until now, the Alliance had focused on defending their territories from Dravek incursions. Our intelligence network has identified a key Dravek world, Scott continued. A breeding colony with minimal defenses. They've never needed to fortify it because no one has ever dared to attack them before. The plan was daring but sound. The Dravek, as apex predators, had evolved with few natural enemies. Their home systems were relatively undefended compared to their forward military bases. No species had ever penetrated deep enough into their territory to threaten their core worlds. The next day, the Alliance fleet departed Harmony Station, 20 ships of different designs but united in purpose. Human tactical officers served on each vessel, coordinating their movements and ensuring the diverse species worked together effectively. Commander Riley led the ground assault team, a mix of humans and aliens specially trained for the mission. Their target was the central hatchery of the breeding colony, where the next generation of Dravek warriors was being cultivated. Remember, she told her team as their dropships approached the planet, the Dravek have never had to defend their young before. They won't know how to respond. The element of surprise worked perfectly. The Alliance fleet cut through the minimal orbital defenses, and the dropships landed with only light resistance. But once on the ground, they encountered the full fury of the Dravek. The ground assault team pushed forward through the alien city, its architecture strange and unsettling to human eyes. Everything was designed for efficiency, with no consideration for comfort or beauty. The environment of a purely predatory culture. Contact front, shouted a human soldier as a group of Dravek warriors appeared ahead. The battle was fierce. The Dravek fought with desperate intensity, but the Alliance forces had been trained for exactly this scenario. Human endurance paired with Venda speed. Tulari telepathy coordinated their movements. Zorlin sensors detected Dravek ambushes before they could spring. In the middle of the fight, Eric Nelson found himself separated from his squad, cornered by 3 Dravek warriors. They approached cautiously, mandibles clicking in what his translator identified as confusion. You should run, one of them said. Prey always runs. Eric held his ground, weapon ready. Not today, and not anymore. He activated a device on his belt, one of Kevin Martinez's inventions. It emitted a pulse that scrambled the Dravek's sensory input, making it impossible for them to accurately judge distance or movement. While they reeled from the sensory overload, Eric picked them off one by one. Across the battlefront, similar scenes played out. Species that had once fled in terror from the Dravek now stood their ground, fighting with tactics learned from their human allies. Commander Riley's team reached the central hatchery, a vast chamber filled with thousands of Dravek eggs. Adult caretakers moved among them, their usual aggression replaced by what seemed like genuine concern for their offspring. We're not here to commit genocide, Patricia announced to her team. Set the charges on the support systems only. Their mission wasn't to destroy the Dravek young, but to demonstrate that the Predator's most vulnerable place was no longer safe. The message would be clear. The hunted had become hunters. As the Alliance forces withdrew from the planet, the breeding colony in disarray behind them, Admiral Taylor received a transmission from Earth. General Powell's face appeared on the screen. Mission. Accomplished, Admiral? Yes, General. First major offensive against a Dravek core world, and we succeeded with minimal casualties. Their breeding colony will recover, but they know now that nowhere is safe for them anymore. The General nodded, satisfied. Our intelligence networks report unusual activity throughout Dravek space. It seems the Empress has called a full gathering of all hunting packs. The entire Empire is mobilizing. They're finally taking us seriously, Scott replied. More than that, Samantha said grimly. We've intercepted communications suggesting they're abandoning all other conflicts to focus solely on humanity. They've identified us as the source of the infection of resistance spreading among their prey species. The Admiral wasn't surprised. We expected this. The Dravek see the world in simple terms, predator and prey. We've disrupted that worldview. Be careful, Scott, the General warned. A cornered predator is at its most dangerous. After the transmission ended, Admiral Taylor looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Dravek Empress was gathering her forces for what would likely be the largest hunting fleet ever assembled in the galaxy's history. But for the first time in millennia, the outcome wasn't a foregone conclusion. The galaxy's top predators had never faced a species like humans before. Creatures who had lived as both predator and prey, who had learned to turn weakness into strength, who understood that cooperation could overcome even the most fearsome natural weapons. The Dravek were about to learn what humans had known since their earliest days on Earth. Sometimes the hunter becomes the hunted. 2 years had passed since humanity's first contact with the Dravek. The conflict had spread across hundreds of star systems, drawing in dozens of species. What had begun as simple survival had evolved into a full-scale war of liberation. Planets that had paid tribute to the Dravek for generations now raised the Alliance flag, inspired by the humans who had shown that the galaxy's top predators could be defeated. Major Gregory Collins led his Special Forces team through the dark corridors of the Dravek command station. His unit moved silently, their movements coordinated through subtle hand signals and helmet displays. Years of fighting the mantis-like aliens had taught humans to adapt their tactics to counter Dravek advantages. Control room ahead, he whispered, into his comm. Team 2 in position? Affirmative, came the response from his second-in-command. Ready when you are. Gregory signaled his team forward. This mission deep into Dravek territory was their most daring yet, a direct strike at one of the enemy's primary command and control centers. Intelligence from their alien allies suggested that a high-ranking Dravek commander, designated Supreme Hunter KATX, was coordinating operations from this station. The humans moved in a formation inspired by wolf packs, demonstrating that humans had their own predatory heritage. They maintained spacing that allowed each soldier to cover the others with no blind spots. Standard military tactics on Earth, but revolutionary in a galaxy where most species had evolved as solitary prey animals. Now, Gregory ordered. Simultaneously, both teams breached the control room from different entrances. The Dravek warriors inside reacted with their typical aggression, but seemed confused by the coordinated attack. Their society, based on strict hierarchies and individual combat prowess, had never developed the fluid teamwork that came naturally to humans. The battle was brief, but intense. When it ended, Gregory's team had secured the command center with minimal casualties. Dravek bodies lay scattered across the floor, their chitin armor pierced by targeted shots to the joints, a weakness Dr. Linda Harrison had identified during her research. Package secured, reported Sergeant Alex Foster, gesturing to a tall Dravek who had been subdued rather than killed. Supreme Hunter K-Textk towered over the humans even while restrained. Unlike other Dravek they had encountered, this one watched them with what seemed like curiosity rather than just rage. You fight strangely, the Dravek commander said, mandibles clicking softly. Like a hunting pack, not like prey. Gregory approached cautiously. That's because humans evolved as both predator and prey. We learned to hunt in groups. The Dravek tilted its massive head. Impossible. A species cannot be both. Many things you thought impossible are happening now, Gregory replied. Like prey species fighting back, Like your breeding worlds under attack, like your empire beginning to fracture. The Supreme Hunter's compound eyes fixed on Gregory with unsettling intensity. Yes, the Empress is displeased. Many lesser hunters have been consumed for their failures. This confirmed intelligence reports that the Dravik leadership had begun turning on itself. A predictable response for a species that resolved conflicts through dominance rather than cooperation. "Extraction team inbound," came a voice through Gregory's comm. 2 minutes. Back on the Alliance flagship USS Defiance, Captain Jason Howard received the team's transmission with relief. The Special Forces extraction had been the riskiest part of their operation. As the soldiers and their high-value prisoner returned safely to the ship, he ordered an immediate withdrawal from Dravik space. In the ship's medical bay, Dr. Linda Harrison supervised as the captured Dravik commander was secured in a specially designed containment area. Her years studying Dravik biology had made her the foremost human expert on the species. "Fascinating," she murmured, observing the Supreme Hunter through reinforced glass. "Notice the coloration patterns on the exoskeleton, significantly more complex than the warriors we've encountered, and the mandible structure suggests greater capacity for vocalization. Can we get useful intelligence from it?" asked Captain Howard, who had joined her in the observation area. "More than that," Linda replied. "This might be our first real opportunity to understand Dravik psychology. All our encounters so far have been with warrior drones or lesser commanders. This is the first time we've captured someone from their ruling caste." Over the next several days, Dr. Harrison conducted careful interviews with the Dravik commander. To everyone's surprise, KTHXTK seemed genuinely curious about humans, asking as many questions as he answered. "Your species confuses our understanding," the Supreme Hunter admitted during one session. "You have the coordination of hive species, but you maintain individuality. You have the aggression of predators, but you protect the weak. You are physically soft, yet you venture into the most dangerous environments." Linda took careful notes. "We evolved in a very competitive environment on Earth. Surviving required both cooperation and innovation. The Empress believes you are a disease," KTHXTK said. "A contagion that infected prey species with the idea of resistance. But I wonder if you are something else entirely. A new kind of predator we have never encountered before." This conversation proved pivotal in the Alliance's psychological warfare strategy. For the first time, they had insight into how the Dravik viewed themselves and others, and how deeply humanity had disrupted their worldview. 2 weeks later, Major Collins and his team were deployed on another mission, this time to a Dravik communication hub. Instead of destroying it, they uploaded a message that would be broadcast across the entire Dravik network. The message included footage of their battles with humans, interviews with the captured Supreme Hunter, and evidence of Dravik defeats across the galaxy. Most importantly, it showed prey species successfully fighting back using human tactics. "The psychological impact was immediate," reported Admiral Franklin during the Alliance leadership meeting. "Our intelligence networks report growing dissent among the lower-ranked Dravik. They're questioning their leaders' abilities to handle the human threat. And the Supreme Hunter has agreed to open formal communication channels," added Ambassador Charles Wilson, who had been working diplomatic angles since the conflict began. He believes a segment of their leadership might be willing to consider alternatives to all-out war. General Samantha Powell looked skeptical. "Can we trust anything a Dravik says? Their entire society is built on predation." "That's just it," Linda Harrison explained. "Through my interviews with KTHX, I've learned that the Dravik themselves are victims of their own biology. Their hierarchical system forces constant competition. Any show of restraint is seen as weakness, but some of them, particularly in the scientific castes, have begun to question whether their approach is still viable in a galaxy where prey has learned to fight back." Captain Howard, whose ship had been at the forefront of many battles, nodded, slowly. "They're apex predators who suddenly find themselves being hunted. Their worldview can't accommodate that reality." The meeting concluded with a bold new strategy: targeted strikes against Dravik military assets combined with psychological operations and diplomatic outreach to more receptive elements within enemy leadership. As Major Collins prepared his team, For their next mission, he reflected on how much had changed in 2 years. Humans had gone from newcomers to the galactic stage to leaders of the greatest alliance the galaxy had ever seen. Species that had been prey for millennia now fought as effective warriors. And for the first time in their long history of dominance, the Dravek were experiencing something entirely new to them: uncertainty. The hunters had become the hunted, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 years had passed since humanity's first encounter with the Dravek. The galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have imagined. The once mighty Dravek Imperium had fractured, with various factions either continuing the fight, retreating to isolated worlds, or, most surprisingly, seeking peaceful relations with the Alliance. President Elizabeth Morgan stood at the large window in her office on Earth looking at the stars. Ships from 24 different species moved in orbit above the planet that had, in just a few years, become the center of a new galactic community. "Madam President," her aide announced, "the diplomatic delegation is ready." Elizabeth nodded and straightened her formal jacket. Today marked a historic occasion: the signing of the first official peace treaty between a major Dravek faction and the Alliance of Free Worlds. The signing ceremony took place in the Grand Hall of Unity, a vast chamber built specifically to accommodate representatives of all Alliance species. At the center stood a large round table, symbolizing the equality of all members, a concept that had been revolutionary to many formerly subjugated races. Grand Admiral Dorothy Franklin, who had commanded the combined fleet during the final major battles, stood to one side watching with cautious optimism. Despite the peace talks, she maintained the fleet at high readiness. Trust would take time to build. "Did you ever think you'd see this day?" asked Ambassador Charles Wilson, who had worked tirelessly on the peace negotiations. "Honestly, no," Dorothy admitted. "When we first engaged the Dravek, I thought we were fighting for survival. I never imagined we'd be redrawing the political map of the galaxy." The doors at the far end of the hall opened, and a delegation of Dravek entered. Unlike the warriors humans had first encountered, these were from the diplomatic and scientific castes, their exoskeletons bearing subtle colors and patterns that indicated their roles in Dravek society. Leading them was Zikatal, formerly a mid-ranked hunter who had been among the first to question the traditional Dravek way of life after encountering humans. After the fracturing of the Imperium, he had risen to prominence as a reformist leader. As the delegation approached the table, there was a tense silence. Many in the room had spent generations living in fear of the Dravek. Seeing them enter not as conquerors but as equals was still shocking. President Morgan stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth and the Alliance of Free Worlds, I welcome you to this historic gathering." Zikatal performed a complex gesture with his upper limbs that the translators identified as a sign of respect. "The Dravek Federation accepts your welcome and comes in peace." The ceremony proceeded with formal speeches and the signing of the treaty. The document acknowledged past wrongs while looking toward a future where predator and prey species might coexist. Most significantly, it formally ended the Dravek practice of hunting sentient beings and established boundaries for their territory. After the ceremony, a reception allowed for more informal interaction. Dr. Linda Harrison, whose research on Dravek, biology and psychology had been crucial to both the war effort and the peace process, approached Zakatal. "Your writings on evolutionary psychology have been fascinating," she said. "Particularly your theory about how the Dravek hunting instinct might be redirected toward more constructive pursuits. Your research inspired much of my thinking," Zikatal replied. "Humans understand something my species is only beginning to grasp, that evolution is not destiny. You evolved as both predator and prey, yet you built cooperative societies that transcended those origins." Across the room, Major Gregory Collins, now retired from active duty and serving as a security consultant, watched the proceedings with mixed emotions. He had lost friends in the conflict and had personally killed many Dravek. Yet he understood the importance of this moment. A young Dravek approached him, moving with the careful deliberation that indicated awareness of how intimidating their natural form could be to humans. "You are Major Collins," the Dravek said. I studied your wolfpack battle tactics at our new military academy. They have revolutionized our understanding of cooperative combat. Gregory nodded, still uncomfortable but professional. Adaptation is the key to survival, something both our species understand. Later that evening, President Morgan hosted a smaller gathering for key figures from both sides. The conversation turned to the future of galactic relations. There will be challenges, Ambassador Wilson acknowledged. Many Dravek still cling to the old ways, and many of our people still harbor fear and resentment. Change does not come easily to predators, Ziktal agreed. For countless generations we knew only one way to exist, but your species showed us an alternative path. Dorothy Franklin raised a valid concern. What about the factions that have rejected this treaty? The reports from our border patrols suggest some hunting packs are still operating. They will learn what we have learned, Ziktal replied. That the old ways lead only to isolation and eventual extinction. In a galaxy where prey species have learned to fight back, pure predation is no longer a successful evolutionary strategy. The conversation continued late into the night, discussing everything from cultural exchange programs to joint scientific ventures. The most promising was a proposal to redirect Dravek hunting instincts toward exploration of unknown regions of space. 5 years to the day after humanity's first encounter with the Dravek, a ceremony marked the opening of the Galactic Council headquarters, built in orbit between Earth and Mars. Representatives from 47 species attended, including both former prey species and reformed Dravek factions. In his address, Ambassador E. Wilson reflected on the journey. 5 years ago, humanity ventured into the stars hoping to find friends. Instead, we found a galaxy locked in an ancient pattern of predator and prey. We did not set out to become liberators or teachers, but our unique evolutionary history prepared us for this role. He gestured to the assembled representatives. Humans are neither the strongest nor the fastest species here. We lack natural weapons and armor. But we brought something more powerful, the understanding that cooperation can overcome biological limitations, that intelligence can redirect instinct, and that former enemies can become allies. As the ceremony concluded, long-range sensors detected unusual signals from beyond the galaxy's edge, patterns too regular to be natural phenomena. A new unknown waited to be explored. President Morgan stood with Ziktal, looking at the preliminary data. It seems the universe has more surprises in store for us. The former Dravek hunter nodded, and we will face them together, not as predator and prey but as equals. The galaxy had been transformed forever by the species no one expected. Humans, who had shown that the greatest strength was not in claws or fangs or natural armor, but in the ability to unite diverse beings toward a common purpose. The top predators had learned their most important lesson. In the grand ecosystem of the galaxy, cooperation would always triumph over predation.